we're going to see the sphenoid bone and its variations. We have the sphenoid body, lesser wings, greater wings, and pterygoid processes. So the sphenoid body is like a cube. We have lateral faces, posterior face, anterior face, superior face, and inferior face. The inferior face has this inferior sphenoidal crest. The superior face has this depression called the pituitary fossa, the tuberculum, jugulum, and these two structures are separated by the prechiasmatic sulcus, going from one optic foramen to the other, or one optic channel to the other. In the anterior face, we have this anterior crest that articulates with the ethmoid bone. We have some olfactory channels that are continuous with the ethmoidal channels in the ethmoid bone. When this anterior crest joins to the inferior crest, they form the rostrum of this sphenoid bone. Then we have the posterior face, posterior clinoids, and the posterior quadrilateral lamina. Here we have a groove for the third cranial nerve and another for the sixth cranial nerve. In the lateral faces, we can have a middle clinoid process. One variation is that this clinoid process be fusioned with this posterior clinoid process, or with this anterior clinoid process, or with both, or that just the posterior and anterior clinoid processes join directly. Here we also have the channel for the cavernous sinus. And between the lesser wing and this lateral face, we have a groove for the internal carotid artery. Then we have the lesser wings. They are like a triangular shape. So we have the base that articulates with the body, the vertices that ends in the sphenoid spine, that is wherein the lesser wing and greater wing joins, and the posterior border is the anterior clinoid process. We have a superior and inferior face. They are both related to the orbital part of the brain, and we have a anterior border that articulates with the ethmoid and frontal bones, and a posterior border that ends in the anterior clinoid process. Then we have the separation between the lesser wing and greater wing, that is this fissure, the superior orbital fissure. This is the superior orbital fissure. So through that fissure, we have the third, fourth, and sixth cranial nerves, and the ophthalmic branch of the trigeminous nerve, and the superior ophthalmic vein. Then we have the greater wings. We have three borders: the external border that has a concave shape, internal border, and anterior border. The anterior border goes from the sphenoid spine to almost the level of the anterior clinoid process, and it is vertical. We have three faces: the anterior, posterior, and external face. The greater wing forms part of the temporal fossa here, and of the infratemporal fossa here, and of the floor and lateral wall of the orbit, so here. In the middle cranial fossa here, that is composed of the greater wing and part of the temporal bone, we have foramina that are in the greater wing of the sphenoid bone. So we have the foramen rotundum here for the maxillary nerve, or maxillary branch of the trigeminous nerve. Then we have the foramen ovale for the mandibular branch of the trigeminous nerve, and a accessory meningeal artery, and sometimes the lesser petrosal nerve. we have the foramen spinosum for the middle meningeal branches, middle meningeal vessels, artery and vein. Sometimes we can have a canaliculus here in the spinous foramen, in the foramen spinosum, called Arnold canaliculus. This foramen spinosum is also called the foramen rotundum minor, foramen rotundum minor. Then we have the foramen lacerum for the petrosal part or C2 part of the segment of the carotid artery that is continued with this ligament. So the foramen lacerum is between the greater wing and the petrosal part of the temporal bone. And medial to the foramen ovale, we have, or sometimes we can have the vesalius foramen. Then we have in the external view the foramen ovale here and the foramen lacerum here. So this was for the right side, and for the left side, here we have the foramen ovale and the foramen lacerum. Then we have in the external view these let's say spines that are called the Meckel lingula, in the greater wings. And then we have the pterygoid processes. Their base are here, and they end in a bifurcation in a medial and lateral plate. The lateral plate has a spine, this spine called the Sphenoid spine, and the medial plate ends in a hook shape called the hamulus of the pterygoid process. Between the two plates we have the pterygoid fossa, and these serve as attachment for muscles like the lateral and medial pterygoid muscles. Then we have the infratemporal fossa that is between the lateral plate of the pterygoid process and the greater wing. So this was the infratemporal fossa. Some variations we can have in the lateral plate a pterygoid ligament called pterygoid spinous ligament that can calcify and then form a channel for the pterygoid vessels. And in the greater wing, I forgot to say, sometimes we can have a horizontal suture that divide the greater wing. We can have a foramen for the or an accessory foramen in the orbital face of the greater wing for the internal maxillary artery. And sometimes we can have something called the cryptophilicus sulcus, that is the groove for which is going to pass the cryptophilicus-buccinator nerve, or the anterior maxillary nerve. We can have in the pituitary fossa the craniopharyngeal conduct of Lancert that goes from the cia turcica to the inferior face, and sometimes we can have the pharyngeal conduct in the lateral walls at the level of the junction of the greater wings with the sphenoid bone. And this is the sphenoid bone with its variations.